Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's explore one of Bordeaux's most unique estates, Cos d'Esternel, and taste its magnificent 2016 vintage, which by the way has received perfect score, 100 points, both from Robert Parker and James Suckling. This is the second video in my series of 1855 classed Bordeaux tastings. We started with a bang by tasting Chateau Latour, one of the first growths. I will link it here. But why not continue with the second growth wine, Cos d'Esternel? I managed to get my hands on one of the finest recent vintages, 2016. But before we taste it, let's take a closer look at the estate's history and its signature style. There are many magnificent estates in Bordeaux. However, Cos d'Esternel stands out with its unique architecture. In fact, every profile and book or blog about Cos d'Esternel begins with a description of its unique pagodas, carved wooden door brought back from Zanzibar, and the close trade relationship its original owner had with Far East. And that is true. Cos d'Esternel is indeed one of the most unique estates in Bordeaux, instantly recognizable in any picture. What I find even more interesting, however, is that Cos d'Esternel is located in Saint-Estephe, an area that at the very beginning of the 19th century was not yet established as prime vineyard land, as was Pauillac or Margaux. Despite this, the estate's owner at the time, Louis Gaspard d'Esternel, invested in expanding land around the estate. You see, it is neighboring and shares a significant border with one of Bordeaux's most famed chateaux, Chateau Lafite. And according to the soil studies, this part of Saint-Estephe bordering Pauillac actually contains far more gravel and less clay than the rest of the Saint-Estephe appellation. Sadly, Louis Gaspard d'Esternel passed away just 2 years before the estate received its prestigious classification as a second growth in 1855 Bordeaux classification. Like many Bordeaux estates, Cos d'Esternel has also changed hands several times over the decades. It is currently owned by Michel Rebier. With the change of ownership came the change of winemakers, one of whom generated particular excitement among wine critics, including Chris Kisak, one of the leading experts on Bordeaux. He was Émeric de Gironde, formerly associated with one of my favorite Bordeaux estates, Pichon Baron in Pauillac. Though his time in Cos d'Esternel was brief, he was in charge when this magnificent 2016 vintage was crafted. I previously mentioned the famed neighbor of Cos d'Esternel for a reason, as it highlights the estate's location at the border of Saint-Estephe and Pauillac. Its terroir is often described as having a higher gravel content compared to the more clay-dominant soils traditionally associated with Saint-Estephe. So vineyards that are more gravel-dominant and located on the elevated plateau are planted with Cabernet Sauvignon, while Merlot, still a significant proportion, is planted on lower clay limestone soils. Great work has been invested into the vineyard parcellation, which is based on several factors, such as aspect, exposure, age of the wines, and soil type. In fact, the average age of Cos d'Esternel vineyards is 45 years, which in my view is quite impressive, and some plots are even 70 years old. Grand Vin is made from wines that have reached at least 20 years of age. All of these previously mentioned vineyard sites are harvested separately depending on the ripeness level of each plot. This means that certain rows might be harvested already, while others right next to them will be left for days to reach the desired maturity level. Cabernet Sauvignon naturally dominates the blend, but Cos d'Esternel has quite high Merlot proportion in their wines, sometimes exceeding 30% of the blend. The higher Merlot content likely contributes to the wine's characteristic fleshy style. The oak regime for the Grand Vin usually involves around 80% new oak, although this can vary depending on the vintage. On average, Grand Vin is aged for 18 months and remains on its lees, which not only protects the wine from oxygen impact, but also can create a fuller mid-palate. Cos d'Esternel is known for its powerful and rich wines, but I guess it really depends on the vintage. There have been years when this style faced criticism from various wine critics, but then again, some wine professionals scored these wines highly. Despite its rich and flashy style, wine still retains elegance, and though tannins tend to be powerful, they are in no way rustic or harsh, as it is sometimes associated with Saint-Estephe. But we have wine in front of us, so we really should speak from the glass. Shall we? Yes, it is deep in color, deep ruby. And nose is quite powerful. It shows a lot of spiciness. Like the first thing that I felt on the nose was really kind of spicy cedar wood, garrigue, like rosemary, thyme. But we also have these tiny, delicate, but really, really ripe berries. Blackberries, blueberries, cassis. I wonder if I feel some notes of lilac here, some floral hints. And kind of like a graphite like, or pencil shaving hint. And it is constantly kind of changing and evolving. Like at some point you feel a little bit of that fruit flavors shining, and then you feel a bit that spiciness, that cedar box, that wood element, and then a bit of that floral character. And now it starts to show the fruit again. Let's taste it. Either it is this beautiful 2016 vintage, or it is the signature of the winemaker at the time, but this wine does not seem kind of overpowered or flashy or opulent. It feels really elegant, quite fresh on the palate. It has this lively, beautiful, fresh acidity, but it is part of a whole body, whole kind of complete wine. The very same thing actually happens on the palate with the tannin. It adds this beautiful texture. It is really tightly knit and quite dense, but at the same time it is super ripe. And as I said already, the tannin here, it does not stand alone. It is part of this whole complete wine. It really feels on the palate that this wine is kind of this one whole body, and there's nothing really flashing outside. It is just beautifully harmonious on the palate. And while I was tasting, I felt the presence and persistence of the fruit. It is just so beautiful. And sometimes wine can be too ripe, too extracted, too opulent, but this is not the case. It is really beautifully done, really elegant in a style. But on the nose, what I really think stands out here is the spiciness of the wine, that kind of graphite, that rosemary element. And fruit does appear once in a while, but for my liking, I would like maybe fruit to be more prominent here. I want to taste this wine again. On the palate, the aftertaste is just so beautiful that you kind of want to come back to it. Yes, I mean, this is complete beauty. I really like this wine on the palate. And I mean the ripeness of the tannin here, and yet still retaining the structure, retaining the grip, but without being, too much, retaining that elegance. This is absolutely beautiful wine. I will give it 98 points. The only reason I am not giving it more is what I told you, and this is my personal preference. Maybe I would have liked fruit to be more open here in this wine. But this could be the issue of the moment. I mean, this is 2016 vintage, great vintage, and still it is very, very young. And there's decades for this wine to develop into something more, and maybe the spiciness of the oak will calm down at some point and the fruit will come up in front, and maybe we will need to open another bottle, taste that, and see how this wine has developed. But for today, 98 points from my side, and absolutely a magnificent bottle. Cheers and thank you for watching. If you want to explore more of the 1855 classification of Bordeaux, make sure to watch this video next.